Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Overcoming Adversity. I'm here with the star of our show, Doug Lawrence. Doug, how are you today?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you very much. And hello to our listening and viewing audience all over the world. Thank you for taking time to be with us this morning, or whatever your time is, but thank you for being with us. And if you're not able to listen to us live, please go to our YouTube channel, the USA Global TV and Radio YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find today's show there, as well as a number of other ones that you can, when time permits, you can go in and listen to the shows and take away the messages that are important to you.
Thanks so much, Doug. You know, I just pulled up the YouTube channel and we've got 22,286 subscribers, which is way up, and 114,000 views over the last 28 days. So thank you, everyone out there. If you are watching, please do subscribe. Just click that button. We have over 40 shows that people can choose from. So, Doug, we just finished another show, and it was a heavy one. And you did a lot of work on that, and now we're going to be talking about inspirational books. How is it that you can make that transition? Do you want to make it?
Do I want to make it? It's, for me, it's going to be just a wee bit of a challenge, because my reading style is probably different than a lot of folks, in that when I pick a book up, if it doesn't grab my attention in the first couple chapters, chances are it ends up in the, Davy Jones's locker, so to speak, where the unread book will sit in a cupboard or wherever. Fortunately, my daughter is an avid reader, so sometimes before they get cycled from me, anyhow, before I cycle them to Davy Jones's reading locker, that she may take it and go through and read it and give me the Reader's Digest version of what the book had, and then I can decide if I want to revisit reading it or not. And chances are I'm probably going to go, no.
I think it's interesting when I think about inspirational books. Something that comes to mind right away are self-help books. So you've got that kind of inspiration. Then you've got inspiration. Someone shares a story of what they went through. And then I also think that there's inspiration in children's books as well. And Diane Floyd-Bain, who's one of our team members, she has mentioned many times that children's books are really for everyone. So the first category, when it comes to self-help or growing your business, for example, I've read a couple of books over the pandemic. I'm not a big reader. I'm not sitting with a book reading because I'm writing, I'm doing all the other things. But I was really interested in this book that was written by Grant Cardone, 10X something or other. And I got a lot of good information from it because he talks about his story, and he didn't have this charmed life and everything just went perfectly for him. So there was motivation in the story itself for me. The fact that, okay, peel back the layers, who is the man really? So that kind of thing always interests me, as opposed to other books out there that are just lists of things. Do this, 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 this. I need to actually be able to connect with the author on a personal level. What do you think?
I'm probably much the same way. When I think, what books have inspired me, they're books that have a story that is being shared by the author with his or her uh, audience or followers. And one that comes to mind is I was hooked on Ken Blanchard's books because every single one of the books that he had, there were small, tiny reads, which is a good thing. So, I remember I went on a holiday one time and I took two of his books, and my idea was I'd probably read on the plane or when I got to the resort that we were staying at, that I would be able to spread this out. I was done the two books in the first probably 5 days of being at the resort. I couldn't put them down. And so for me, it's telling a story. And what I'm going through right now is the book that I have that was recommended, and don't ask me to share the title or the author because it's gone. I just know the book is over behind me. And in any event, that particular book is telling a story as well. And as you mentioned, that we had a pretty deep discussion in the past show, that a lot of that stemmed from my reading of this book. So for me, it has to have a story, and this one that I'm reading now definitely has a story. And I do look for the self-help books, but they do have to have that story kind of format to them in order to get past the 2-chapter cursory read that I typically go through.
You mentioned something that I want to kind of just look at a little bit. It doesn't have anything to do with inspirational books, but we were having a conversation about the male brain and the feminine brain, meaning when you talked about you take the information in, you're reading it, and then you kind of let it go. And I feel like I do that a lot as well, because there's so much information to retain, and your brain only has so much room, and you need to clear out some of it so you can make room for new things. So do you find when you are reading something that you're maybe in your subconscious, you're looking for some gems to pick out from the reading, and you're kind of like, okay, let me get to the part that I can say, okay, this makes sense. I resonate with this, or this resonates with me. Or you really you want to enjoy the entire journey of wherever the author's taking you?
Yes, if they catch or capture my attention in the first 2 chapters. And usually I will get something that tells me this is good, you need to go further, and then I will. I'll go past the 2-chapter sort of line in the sand. But if there is no connection in that first 2 chapters, chances are it's probably going to sit on the shelf, or I'll pawn it off on my poor daughter, who, like I said, is an avid reader. So
there you have it. If you don't get his attention in the first 2 chapters, that's the end. It's something for me when I'm reading books, when I do read books, or if I'm watching maybe a movie or a television show. I mentioned I don't watch mainstream television, but the streaming services, if something's happening and I'm uncomfortable with it, I'll actually stop, and I need some time to prepare myself for it before I go back to the book. So for example, if something is really painful, maybe the 2 characters are getting into something, and maybe it's something coming up for me, I don't even know. But it's the same thing when I'm watching movies. If I see something that I'm uncomfortable with, for example, drug addiction, I don't want to watch any movies where people have needles, and I don't know, I just cannot watch it. And knowing that there's some amazing movies where that's featured in, I have to fast forward through it. Like if I've seen it already, I have to fast forward. So I don't know what that means, but that really has an impact on what it is that I'm reading. Now, we have people who've come here, who've talked about addictions, drug addictions, etc. I have no problem with having that kind of conversation, but it's the actual visualization of it, whether I'm reading in a book or I'm watching it on some kind of medium. What do you think that means?
It's obviously because when you're sort of sharing that experience, I was thinking back to my time in the police force and being involved in having to deal with different situations where I had to be comfortable with a needle, and so it conjured up a vision, and not a vision, but a memory of a couple times where I ended up, because there was no one else, basically I ended up having to do the task at hand, which required using the needle to draw fluid and stuff like that. So without getting into some not so pleasant details and stuff like that, but I still I still recall going through that process, and it's yeah, I'm going to stop it there.
Yeah, that's really tough. So many times in inspirational books, there are chapters, because I've written one myself where I interviewed people from around the world, and I shared my story, and then each person shared theirs. And I can't even go back and read the book. I want people to buy it, but I personally can't, because I interviewed the people and I watched as they were reliving it, and I felt their pain. And so now I don't want to go there and feel that again. I don't know what that means, but I'm glad that we wrote the book and we put the book out there, because they needed to share their stories as much as I needed to share mine. But yet I don't want to go and revisit it. So I think that's also something I like to study something. So for example, I mentioned about television shows. I'll go back and watch something again, or a movie again. I'm watching the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary, and I never was really a big Arnold fan, but I'm finding that passion, that drive, that commitment that he made to himself to get to America, to be a bodybuilder. And now I'm on the second part where he's talking about not just being an actor with no experience, but being a leading man and doing all of his own stunts. And so I'm going to watch it again, because there's just something about it that resonates with me, that's driving me to look for the next mountaintop. And as opposed to if it was just all painful, this is, I don't think I could do it.
It's tough because I know, with TV shows and stuff like that, I'm drawn to ones that have a story that is sort of topical. So there's one Fire Country it's about a family that is part of the firefighting in the bush, so to speak, and I relate to what's going on with the show on TV, largely due to the fact that we have so big of an issue in some of the provinces here in Canada that have got all these fires that are burning, and they're having to evacuate communities and all that sort of stuff. And I can relate now, to what's going on with Fire Country, the show itself, and stuff like that, because it takes me back to what's actual reality, which is what's going on here in a number of different provinces in Canada.
That's so important what you just mentioned, because here on the East Coast of the United States, we were all impacted by the air pollution that was coming from there, and that you're there.
Yeah, I think back to, because they went through it again, a community of about 4 to 5,000 people in just inside the Northwest Territories border. And when I was stationed there in 1980 to 84, and we actually had forest fires back then that encroached very close to the community, and they had, made plans to evacuate. So in their idea of what they were going to do was load everybody onto barges and put the barges out into Great Slave Lake. That was the best approach was, because there was no guarantee we were going to be able to drive out. So the idea was to do that. And fast forward to just this year, and the town was under siege again of forest fires, and that there was no mention made of the barge evacuation idea, but definitely they're experiencing once again that same sort of thing of the fires and the potential for having to be evacuated.
How are you feeling, by the way, with the air quality? Has it impacted you at all?
Not a lot. I'm not getting out as much, but I've got lots of stuff on the go, so it kind of keeps me inside. But every once in a while, I'll maybe go outside. I have to water the flowers. I can't. That's part of my job. So that's a whole nother story. Anyhow, but yeah, I do. I've gone out a couple times where I can tell from how the smoke will impact your lungs and stuff from breathing and stuff like that. But we're fortunate here that we've probably had 2 or 3 days where it was fairly smoky, and that's been it.
Thank goodness. It impacts so many people and the planet. Obviously, everything seems to be shifting. So back on the subject of books, when you're contemplating reading a book, does the number of pages have anything to do with whether or not you're going to read it? So if you got a 1,000-page book and I say, Doug, here you go, or I give you a book and it's maybe 100 pages, does it matter?
It has definitely some impact, and that's why the books that I've written have tried to keep it to that 100-page range. I'm sensing that I may be a bit bigger than that with the next one that I'm doing right now, but like a 1,000-page book that'd be a showstopper. And I should probably add the caveat to that is that if I read the first 2 chapters of a 1,000-page book and there was no attraction whatsoever to continue on, then I definitely wouldn't continue. I might go beyond the 2-chapter rule, as I call it, in a book that's 1,000 pages and there's stories that I can relate to. I would be inclined then to maybe go beyond that. But other than that, I think the as I call them, the quick reads that have the story and they get the story out there, and there's some quick takeaways and some nuggets that you can put into practice fairly quickly. I think those win out over the other books that are huge in content.
I agree with you. I feel the same way. What about how-to books? Do you find them to be inspirational? So, for example, how to build a desk. I don't know, I'm just coming up with anything. Or would you find that you're more likely to go over to YouTube or some online platform?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm, it's funny because I'm learning more and more from my children, because the first place they go to is the internet, and go to Google, and they'll get you the answer right away. And I'm kind of going like, okay, what happened to the way things were before, where you'd have to buy a user's manual, or you'd get something in paper format, where now you go to go to the internet and you can find what you want. Plus, they'll even give you a video on top of it all, heaven forbid, that, will take you through step by step in fixing the problem that you're trying to fix.
I love what you just shared there because it is so true. I mean, we are on YouTube right now, right? So this is where our platform is, and there's so much information here. And I wonder if there's any research to look at, has it impacted the number of books that are still being published? Because you can get so much information. You can even get motivational videos, you can get meditation, you can get yoga, you can get all these things, that there are books out there, and you and I are both authors, so we want people to keep buying books. And I think it's a combination, really, because when you have the book, you can always go back and refer to it. You can still go to YouTube and watch, obviously, because that's what we encourage people to do. So maybe it's some combination of having that tangible thing in your hand as well as what's online. What do you think?
Well, I think, as I probably don't want to say this, but I think some of it's an age thing, because I struggle at times to read a book online, versus actually having the paper copy in my hand and being able to read it at my leisure, which I could do if it was an ebook, yes. But I just find that I respond better to a book that I actually physically have in my hand versus something that I'm trying to read online.
Very true. And I know for myself, I love having my books. They're all over there on the table. I like to be able to pick them up, look at them, and have them. Do you feel the same way about yours?
Yeah, it's because if I take off to go visit somebody for a coffee or have a business meeting or whatever, in my little briefcase that I always carry, I usually have 4 or 5 copies of the book. And like yesterday, I went to a doctor's appointment and I took a copy of You Are Not Alone with me. And the doctor and I had a great conversation about mental health and mentoring and his, what he had done before he's doing what he's doing now. And so I pack, like I said, 4 or 5 copies of the book with me, and just, use it as sometimes just as a conversation starter.
And would you describe, for people who haven't read your books, would you describe them under the inspiration category?
Might be a stretch. Just because when I think the gift of mentoring is all about the mentoring process and concepts. So it's kind of I guess that could be a self-help book for somebody who thinks they want to be a mentor, or who thinks they may need a mentor. So kind of a self-help, I guess. You Are Not Alone is somewhat unique in that it's all about the mentoring concepts and processes. But what we've done is we've woven into that the aspect of mentoring being part of the support structure for mental health. And we share stories in the book about different situations that have taken place, and how there's a mental health component to them. But just as importantly, there's also the fact that mentoring, had it have been in place, it would have been a good place to be part of the support structure. So there's, I think the genre that they actually have it in mentoring and coaching genre for anyone who's listening today that understands all that particular jargon. But it wouldn't be self-help, but it would, like I said, it's kind of unique in that it sort of sits in its own little space.
Doug, do you have your book there that you can read for us?
I do. There's You Are Not Alone. And just make sure here. People are now looking at mentoring in a different light. Mentoring in the 21st century has become effective mentoring. The terminology effective mentoring is clearly indicative of the paradigm shift that I mentioned earlier. There are a number of components, processes, and concepts that are now part of being an effective mentor. When I look at where mentoring has come from and where it is today, the change has been phenomenal. It has become what it is today because of it being recognized as a viable business solution.
Thank you so much, Doug. What do you want people to take away from reading this book?
Well, the most important thing for me is to, number one, recognize that mentoring can and will definitely be part of the support structure for mental health. So people that are dealing with, grief and mourning and post-traumatic stress, operational stress injury, all of those elements that mentoring does have a place to play in there. The other part that I think is important is just a deeper, richer understanding of the mentoring process and what it can provide to anyone, for that matter. If you take the time to, it's like everything else. The more you put in, the more you get out, and mentoring is no different. So the more you can educate yourself or get the training, the education that you need to be an effective mentor, the more that you can do that, then what you get to give back is a deeper, richer mentoring experience. And I think that's another takeaway from reading You Are Not Alone.
And Doug, would you say that there were role models or mentors or books that have been written that inspired you to write yours?
My best answer for that is that what I found in doing a lot of the writing and research that I've done is that there are lots of books that come at the topic of mentoring from a academic perspective, so very much about the theory in that. And what was missing was the practical application of mentoring in various situations. And that's where I come from. That's kind of my forte is translating those theories into how I would apply those in a practical situation. So the practice of mentoring is basically the approach that I take is from that angle.
Thanks so much for explaining that. I want to talk about a book that pretty much everyone has heard of, and that's the Bible. Are you someone who has been an avid reader of the Bible in the past?
Every night I have a little, actually I'll back up the train here, but I have a small Bible that I got when I was just a youngster, and we went through, I was confirmed in the United Church at the time, and we went through some Bible classes, and we actually had a small youth group. And I remember we went to little camp outings and stuff like that, and socialized and all that sort of stuff. But I ended up, I think I was trying to remember, I've obviously blocked this out for a reason, but I was trying to remember, I think it was I can't remember if it was my father or my father's second wife that had actually had the little Bible and had given it to me and said, I believe this is yours, because it was inscribed inside with my signature, and that back in, gosh, I think it was 1967 or something like that. So anyhow, I have this little tiny Bible that sits on my end table in the bedroom, and every night I open it up to the 23rd Psalm, and I read that out loud, and that's my daily, nightly ritual that I go through. And I find that it helps me ground myself after a busy day, and it also helps me from the aspect of peace and solitude. I get that from reading that. I've done some other, looked at some other scriptures and stuff like that, but it's the 23rd Psalm that uh, has the biggest message for me, and it was actually one of the scriptures that we read at Deborah's celebration of life.
Thanks for sharing that, your personal information. That's really appreciated. So, would you say that that's the most inspirational book that you've read or that you read, or what category would you put that in when it comes to books? If you were in a bookstore and you were looking for the different topics, where would the Bible be?
It would definitely be at the top. It would be a book that I would, you know, it, it would be a book that I would recommend to people to, especially with everything that's going on in the world today, that this is a book that can, be there to be, provide you the guidance that you need. It can be a book that's there to provide you the peace and solitude that you may be searching for. So it would be a book that, I would definitely recommend if it were on the bookshelf in a bookstore.
Thank you so much, Doug. Yes, there is a lot of inspiration in the Bible. When we think about other books that inspire us, I had mentioned Grant Cardone, not a paid spokesperson, but Grant, you can send the check if you'd like. I also read some fitness books because I'm really always thinking about how can I take myself to the next level. And I like having a book because I can just pick it up and I could take it to the gym with me if I wanted to. I have some workout equipment here. So that's something that really inspires me to be the best version of myself. What about fitness books? Do they do anything for you?
No. No, and it's interesting that because Deborah was into fitness, she was in a bodybuilding competition and all that sort of stuff. So she was kind of my book when it came to when I was actually doing some serious weight training and stuff like that myself. She was kind of my book that I would go to her and this is what I want to do, or this is the outcome I'm looking for. How do I get there, so to speak? So, but to pick up an actual paper copy of a book, probably no.
So that explains how, when I was talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so that's how you knew of him because of Deborah and her bodybuilding.
Yeah. There was a number of bodybuilders that she followed, and don't ask me who they are because I don't, that's another part I blocked out. So but she did that part. She did the bodybuilding, the competitive aspect of it, and then the couple jobs that she had, she was actually a gym fitness attendant. So she would be the resident expert in a so one of the hotels has a gym in the basement of the hotel where clientele come to work out at lunchtime and stuff. And she was hired to be sort of the personal trainer for everybody that came to the hotel. So she had that stuff going on as well. And that just gave us, lots of different experiences and things that for me because I would listen to what she was saying and gave me different perspective on things that I could be doing differently to get different outcomes.
So much knowledge and experience that you have, Doug. I really just am so thrilled that you are here on our platform, bringing it every single week. So we're down to the last few minutes of the show, and I'd love to have you read something else from your book, if you would.
I can certainly take a look here and see what we've got. When I first started the journey of writing this book, one of two that I am working on, I reflected back on my previous book, The Gift of Mentoring, in 2014. I wanted to recreate the ambience of two of us sitting side by side on a bench and me sharing some stories of my experiences over the years. That feeling of settling into a long conversation with a good friend is the most important outcome for me. I won't make any promises as to what you should expect, but I encourage you to pick up a copy of this book and read it with an open mind. I've learned a lot while researching and writing this book, and I hope you will too.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doug. And people can go over to Amazon and pick up a copy of your books, correct?
Correct.
Fantastic. So as we close out this show, I would love for you to share something. You shared it before, but there are people who are going through hard times and they need to work with someone, and maybe they don't have as much money as they'd like to be able to hire someone. What does your process look like for working with someone?
So people can reach out through my website. Number one, we'll talk about the contact part. So can reach out through, my website at www.talentc.ca and go to the contact page and connect with me that way. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm relatively active on LinkedIn. So search on Doug Lawrence. Once you've found me, then just direct message me and we'll set up a time that's convenient for us to have a conversation. But probably just as easy for us both is to send me an email at doug.lawrence@talentc.ca. So the word talent with a small c on the end, .ca. And I'll get back to you as quickly as I can.
Thank you so much, Doug. Oh, sorry, I was going to say.
I was just, what I was going to say was that if you're reaching out to get some help in dealing with, some situations that you're going through, whether it be the loss of a loved one or anything in general, that reach out to me first and let's have the conversation to sort of see if I'm even the right person to be able to, help you on your journey. And if so, then we can have a conversation. And my philosophy is that if it's money that is preventing you and I from working together, and obviously your need is great, that we'll take money off the table. It won't be part of the conversation, and we'll just focus on you as an individual and what we can do to help you on your healing journey, no matter what it may be.
That's so generous of you, Doug. And he's here. You see him, reach out to him. His information is right there on the screen. And a lot of times people want to do something, but they're literally unable to move forward because they're afraid of what they're going to find out, or they're afraid to do the work. They're afraid maybe that their life is going to change. What do you have to say to them, Doug?
It's you're not helping yourself if you are, if you're afraid to reach out and ask for help. And here's the thing that probably that we all need to think about is that if I don't ask the questions, if I don't ask, how am I going to deal with this situation? I don't know which way to turn. So if I don't ask those questions, I'm never going to know the answer. And with me, what I would promise you is that if I don't think you're ready, or I don't think I can help, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell you right up front that I think, your time may be better spent working with somebody else, and this is who I would suggest. Or, maybe let's explore this a little bit deeper before we make a decision whether we're going to go forward together or not. But at the end of the day, the most important thing in this whole conversation is you.
Wow. I love how you just brought that all together. It's you out there watching or listening. Take action. Reach out to the man. He is here. He has given you his LinkedIn, his website, his email address. Please do contact Doug. Doug, another episode. How do you feel at the end of this one?
Definitely not as weighed down as the other one.
Good, you feel lighter, and
Yes.
that's what we want. The yellow background, the butterflies. It's meant to inspire and have people put some of that heavy baggage down.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you again for being here. We'll be back next week. Our next show is coming up. It's Talking Heads with our expert Caroline Heward, and she explores a lot of topics that are really heavy too. So just buckle yourself in for some more education. We're happy to have you, and we really appreciate you. Thanks, Doug. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.